So I have a confession to make. This last week, I've gotten hooked on some various stories that I found really interesting. So you're going to have to suffer through them with me, because I now want to share them, because they're very interesting. And a lot of them have to do with Civil War stories, or that era. And some of this came out of Vacation Bible School. Art Metzger told a story about Captain Witcher. And an intriguing story of a guy who got together a company H of the 46th Regiment, and led them down to Camp Curtin. And then he returned very quickly and developed a gang, and they started stealing livestock, clothes off the line, money coming back from the front, from a very vulnerable people. I think, boy, what dark days. And then as I think more about the Civil War stories, I think about Antietam and Gettysburg would take a terrible toll locally. It's been said that not a family around here would be left untouched by pain. One of the stories that gripped me was the Hydorn family, who I think lived up where Tom and Betty Wilson do now. Their last living son died in 1863 at the Battle of Chancellorsville. Loss after loss. As I've been working through those stories, I thought, well, this is not Thanksgiving material. So I started looking for something that would have sort of a gleam of hope. And I came across some Stillman stories, stories of the Stillman family. This is particularly of interest to me. Cindy is related to the Stillmans, so I claim credibility in the area because she's related to somebody. And also, the Stillmans had originally come from my hometown, so they're obviously good people. So I found it very interesting. I wanted to do some more research, and so I contacted various Stillman family members, and they used their connections, and just doing some reading. And I came across the story of Amos Stillman. On March 3rd, 1864, he and his son enlisted in the 46th Regiment. What a story here. His son Bernie had just turned 18 years old and enlisted. And his father was 42 and enlisted the same day. I thought, wow, what a story this is. This is a gleam of hope in dark days. So I kind of followed the story along, and they went off to Camp Curtin probably, and then they went off to various battles, and they would end up in this particular campaign. It's been in the news a little bit. It's at the 150th anniversary. These dates. Does anybody remember? 150 years ago. This time period. Gettysburg is a little bit before this. I see mouths moving, but not a lot of confidence here. Sherman's... Prize. He got that. Yeah. Maybe someday you'll get a right answer. Yeah. Sherman's March to the Sea. And this is not an uplifting story either, is it? It helped bring the war to a close. There's Sherman's theory that if you can make enough pain and suffering, people will bring the war to a close. A path almost 300 miles wide, about 50 miles wide, of utter destruction. In later years, a family member in Amos's family would talk about a quote that he gave. The inhumanity being displayed by both sides on this march goes beyond the limits of believability. Dark days. I'm still searching for the gleaming story that's going to shine through here, and I don't find it. Bernie suffers terribly during the campaign. Amos ends up contracting TB, and is discharged honorably as a corporal, but will suffer the rest of his life physically. Then out here in the cemetery, there's a stone marked August 31, 1865. Amos's 14-year-old son died that day. I stood a long time staring at that stone and thinking, why? Pain after pain after pain. And I thought, this is the story of Ruth and Naomi. Ruth and Naomi, the story in the Bible, is pain after pain. Remember, Naomi and her husband left Bethlehem because of a famine. There was no food. They had to do something. They had to go somewhere. So they went to Moab, almost the enemy. Their two sons would marry a couple local women. But then Naomi's husband died. Then her two sons die. And they come back to Bethlehem, she and her daughter-in-law, with nothing. And this is what we're told in Ruth chapter 1. When Naomi is welcomed back into town, page 188 in the Pew Bibles. Naomi says this, "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." Pain upon pain. Fortunately, this is not where this story ends. There is a lot more ahead. A story that brings hope. It's interesting that Naomi is saying this. I've got nothing. Nothing is good. In fact, I think what she's actually saying is, who put the kick me sticker on me? God, how come I'm getting kicked again while I'm down? Did you put the sticker on me? And she does. She pretty much says, God, did you put the sticker on me? The Almighty has done this. But it's interesting, she's saying this while Ruth is standing next to her. Naomi is saying, I've got nothing. While Ruth is saying, hello, I just left everything. I left my family. I left my friends. I'm with you. I'm more than nothing. And by the end of the story, Naomi starts putting the pieces together. She starts seeing how she has not been left alone. Ruth has been with her. Ruth provides for her by gleaning in the fields. She gets grain from the fields. And then she also ends up marrying Boaz. And they have a child that's considered Naomi's grandson. That's the part of the story we are going to focus on this morning for Thanksgiving, is Ruth chapter 4, verses 14 through 17. Just over the page. And this is once again the women of Bethlehem and Naomi talking back and forth, but with a very different focus. The women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons has given him birth." Then Naomi took the child, laid him in her lap, and cared for him. The women living there said, "Naomi has a son," and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Here are our Thanksgiving principles. All right, we're going to work with word pictures. We're going to see how you do this week. We didn't have a good week last week. This is going to be better. First thing we're going to think about is that we are thankful for the people around us. A lesson that Naomi was picking up. Now, in this story, verse 15. Top picture.
7 sons.
Yeah, better than 7 sons. Come on. It'll click later. 7 sons. This is important wording. The idea of 7 sons, of course, in this culture, sons are important for them, for their livelihood. 7 is kind of this idea of perfect. So you have the perfect number of sons, but your daughter-in-law is better than that. Even if you had 7 sons, even if you had the perfect number of children or whatever your life had been before, even if that had been perfect, you've got something better. Your daughter-in-law is better than what you could have envisioned as being perfect. You have someone with you. And the other picture of static cling, of clinging. It was the powerful image throughout Ruth of Ruth clung to Naomi. She was with her no matter what. In the darkest of days, no matter how bad things were, Ruth was there. I think this time of year is an important time to step back and not just think about the things that we're thankful for, but to think about the who we are thankful for. One homework thing. As we come to our Thanksgiving table in the week ahead, that we tell God specifically who we are thankful for and why. To go through that, to honestly go through, God, I'm thankful for this person and here is why. And I think each of us might be surprised that we want to express our thanks to a person as well. Maybe someone we've taken for granted. Maybe someone who has done something really kind that we never said thank you. Something to consider. Another aspect of a Thanksgiving principle is in verse 16. Thankful for God's good gifts. There's a picture here. First picture. What is the good gift that is given in these verses?
A blanket.
No.
In a blanket.
No. Okay, focus on the woman. She looks like she could be a grandmother. The good gifts. It's the story of Naomi as a grandma. I've seen some of you grandmas. You kind of glow. There's something special. There's a joy that comes with being a grandma. And that is the picture that's happening here. Naomi, she's no longer saying, call me bitter, call me Mara. You know, that's the old Naomi. We now move to Grandma Naomi. She is full of joy. But there's a question mark here because in chapter 1, Naomi is saying, God, why'd you do this? You know, this person died, we faced a famine. She doesn't get those questions answered. Those questions are still lingering there, but she has a joy to hold on to. An interesting thing, God doesn't just bury our grief. It's not like Naomi all of a sudden had her husband back and her sons back. That didn't happen. What happened was that God redeemed her grief. That through that grief, through that horrible sequence of life, she yet came to a time in which God blessed her with a grandson. Something to hold on to. Now, I want to switch back to the Amos Stillman story again. His son who had passed away, Arthur Eugene Stillman. 11 years after this, Amos Stillman would be a grandpa. His grandson would be named Arthur Eugene Madison, who would live in the same house that Amos built, up where Todd and Dr. Sally live. There's a few Amos Eugene people kicking around the hill today even, I hear. What a powerful story. in which amidst the deepest and darkest moments of life, there is yet but joy to hold on to. And that's something that's true for us as well. As we come to Thanksgiving, to be honest with God, to not cover up our hurts and disappointments, to be honest and lay those before God, to express those, and at the same time look for those things that might be an amazing joy that we've overlooked. I tend to hold on to pain very tightly and lose sight of joy. One more lesson I want to think about here. Taking it in, all right. Verse 14. Thankful that there is a Redeemer, a vending machine. That too. You're always thankful for a vending machine. Woo! Get that Pepsi. This is on the opposite end of vending machine. This is where you put the can in and you redeem it and you get coins back. Redeeming something. And that's what we're thinking about here. In this passage, they're talking about a kinsman redeemer. And redeemer is the idea of deliverance from some evil by the payment of a price. Kind of sounds like ransom, doesn't it? If some bad guy is holding somebody captive, a price is paid, and then they are released. Sort of idea. I thought about this passage some. I thought, there is a redeemer. And in verse 14, I'm thinking, this is Boaz. This has got to be Boaz, the redeemer, coming in and saving the day. I'm not going to put you through the pain of this picture. This is landing a fish. All right? Boaz redeemed the land. It's admittedly a bad one, so I'm going to give you that one for free. Land. I think, oh, sure, Boaz is the redeemer here. He came in, he paid the price for the land, whether there was a debt on the land or whether it just needed to be redeemed to keep it in the family. He did it. But in verse 15, it's clear it's the baby. The baby is the redeemer here. And I say, what? Really? But think about it. It provides hope for Grandma Naomi. It redeems her from what seemed like a hopeless situation. In verse 14, we're told that this baby will become famous in Bethlehem. The lineage of King David, pointing us to a redeemer further down the line that's promised in 2 Samuel 7:13. And gets us to Galatians chapter 3, 13 and 14. A redeemer known as Jesus Christ, who will take our curse, pay the price for our sins, and die on the cross in our place to redeem us for an eternal hope. Not just a short-term hope, but a hope eternal. I want to go back to Arthur Eugene again. The bottom of his stone, there was some writing down at the bottom. I couldn't tell what it was. So I went out with some paper and crayons and pencils to do a rubbing. So I was the crazy guy. The papers blew all over the place. I was running all around. But I did the rubbing, and the message on the bottom was this: our darling child, rest thee. Life's storms and tempests harm thee not. An eternal hope because there is a Redeemer. A hope because there is a Redeemer who restores our relationship with God for an eternity. The opportunity for a rest. A rest from the pain of the Civil War era. A rest from the pain of people dying and suffering. The bottom of the stone for Amos and his wife Carolyn. Gone home to rest. Hope that we find in a Redeemer. A hope of rest. No matter what we are facing, no matter what we are struggling with, hope to rest with God. thought I want to close this with today as we think about our life story, as we think about Ruth's story, as we think about the story of Amos Stillman. I'm struck with how we come to an intersection at Thanksgiving. Intersection of all sorts of roads to choose from. Now, last week, you mocked me because I gave you 2 easy roads to choose from. This week, it's going to be different. So this is the quiz we're going to end on. All right? Cotter sport.
It's the first intersection
All right?
with the red lights.
How about this one? This is the Potter County intersection. Middle of Kent's Hayfield. Yeah, all right. Snowmobile intersection. All right. I get out. All right. How about this one? Wellsville. Oh, you guys are, you took the picture. You don't get to guess. All right. Wellsville. How about this one? Port Allegheny show-offs. All right, I got one more. How about this? It's blurry and at night. It's Bath. Bath, New York. All right. I was hoping nobody would get that one, and I cut it off before somebody guessed it. All right. I'm struck with how we come to an intersection at Thanksgiving. The intersection that we've been talking about is where thankful for good gifts, thankful for the people around us, thankful that there is a Redeemer. But those intersections, it's an intersection that comes together for one road, and that is community. Did you notice how in Ruth chapter 4, how it's a group of people celebrating with Thanksgiving? That it's not just Naomi sitting off by herself, it's not just individuals, it's together as a group of people celebrating God's goodness. A grandson has been born. Celebrating that there is a Redeemer who is coming. To celebrate that there are people around us. That's what we do today. That's what we'll do in this week coming up. Let's take the intersection offered us.